for you. Today, we're tackling a really serious global health trend,
Yeah.
the alarming rise of autoimmune diseases, or
Yeah.
ADs. And this isn't just a discussion about genetics. We've got this fascinating meta-analysis that looks at what causes ADs, not just through the modern lens of molecular biology,
Right.
but by drawing these really direct, surprising parallels to an ancient system of knowledge, Ayurveda.
And that's so important because ADs are incredibly complex. I mean, the sources all stress that how a disease gets started, the pathogenesis, it's never a single trigger.
Right.
It's this intricate dance between your genes, your environment, hormonal factors, and all of that can just destabilize your immune regulation. So our goal today is to pull out the most powerful triggers, both external and internal, that this analysis highlights.
Okay, so let's just jump right in with the modern lab findings. And some of these they're surprising everyday things that might be setting up our immune systems for trouble. Let's start with something you probably interact with every single day. Aluminum.
Yes. The research cites pretty clear evidence for an association between aluminum al and autoimmunity. And, it's a common element, it's in our diets, and it's famously used as an adjuvant.
A boosting agent, right?
Right.
In vaccines.
Exactly, a boosting agent. So the very fact that an element so common, one that we use specifically to stimulate an immune response, is also on the list of potential triggers, well, it really shows you the double-edged sword of some of these environmental exposures.
It really makes you look at a lot of everyday products differently.
Yeah.
But what's incredible is how quickly the source material pivots from, heavy chemistry to microbiology.
Okay.
It zeroes in on a microbial link that can start right in your kitchen.
Mm.
We're talking about staphylococcal enterotoxins, or SEs.
Yeah. Most people, if they know SEs at all, know them as the cause of classic staph food poisoning. That really nasty, quick onset stomach flu feeling after you've eaten something that's gone bad. But the research shows their role is, well, it's much more chronic and way more complex than just a bad weekend.
So how do you get from a temporary food poisoning agent to a chronic autoimmune problem?
It all comes down to the body's ultimate firewall, the gastrointestinal mucosal immunity. The studies show that these SEs act as superantigens. They basically put the immune system lining your gut into overdrive.
Wow.
And when that barrier, that mucosal barrier, is constantly being challenged by these contaminants in food, you get this state of chronic inflammation and immune confusion. And that's where the immune system can start to lose its tolerance, suggesting the gut isn't just, the site of food poisoning. It's a central battlefield where autoimmunity might actually begin.
That's a huge insight. Connecting a specific food bug directly to a systemic immune failure all through the gut. So if we zoom out, identifying these specific factors, aluminum, these SEs, it's essential for understanding a person's individual risk profile, right?
Exactly. It's the difference between just saying, oh, it's genetic, and saying it's your genetics plus repeated exposure to these specific things that mess with your gut.
It moves us closer to actual prevention.
It does. It helps us move towards personalized and preventative medicine.
And it's not just chemicals and microbes in the world around us, it's our internal world too. The third major modern trigger in the source material is psychological stress. And we've always sort of known stress is bad for us, but this meta-analysis frames it very clearly as a public health issue that's linked to a whole host of immunological diseases.
And what's really striking in the research is how rigorously they measured it. They didn't just ask people to rate their stress from 1 to 10. They quantified it. They used a composite index with 4 very specific measurable areas.
Okay, so what were those areas?
The first one was serious life events, so think bereavement, a major illness. Second was parenting stress, which is a really chronic, high-load type of stress.
Yeah.
Third, a lack of social support, which we now know is critical for immune resilience. And the last one, parental worries. Recognizing that stress about the older generation can impact the next. So by moving stress from this abstract idea into these concrete, measured inputs, the link to immune health becomes really robust.
It's just more proof that the
Yeah.
mind and body they're really just one system. You can't separate them when you're talking about immune health. So let's shift gears a little because the sources are really clear that AD risk is not. It's not a straight line. It's this dynamic, complex thing where timing and even seemingly harmless substances can become hidden factors.
Yes, those hidden factors. We already talked about aluminum, but it comes up again here alongside another molecule, vitamin D, which has this unexpectedly complex role in generating autoimmunity.
See, that's surprising. Vitamin D is almost always seen as a good thing, right? The sunshine vitamin is great for your bones. What's the catch?
The catch is complexity. I mean, Yes, vitamin D deficiency is often linked to worsening autoimmune conditions. But the research suggests that vitamin D, when it's interacting with other things like the specific genetic makeup or high aluminum levels, might not always be so helpful. It's
Mhm.
a powerful immune regulator. And if that regulation system is already stressed or confused, a powerful regulator can become just another unpredictable variable. It really forces us to move past this simple good or bad labeling of substances.
And that dynamic really sits under this whole alarming trend. I mean, autoimmune diseases have seen this dramatic rise globally.
Yeah.
And that kind of speed, it can't be explained by genetics alone. Our genes just don't change that fast.
They don't. All the accumulated evidence indicates that ADs happen when our genetic backdrop collides with these huge environmental and lifestyle shifts. It's the constant exposure to new chemicals, processed foods, chronic stress. All of it impacts the immune system's ability to tell the difference between self and non-self.
And when that fails,
That failure, when the body starts attacking its own tissues, that is the very definition of autoimmunity.
and speaking of these nonlinear factors, the sources bring in something really surprising. Timing. They mentioned the ADs show seasonality, which is often tied to UV exposure, and that even the month you were born in might influence your lifetime risk.
And what's so fascinating there is just how powerful that early environment is. It suggests that the world around you, the amount of sunlight, which pathogens are around, it acts almost like a programming event. Very, very early in life, the vulnerability gets set long before you're even fully mature.
Wow.
So it raises this really profound question, how much of disease is governed by things we can't control, like when and where we're born, versus the things we can adjust, our diet, our stress, our choices.
That tension,
Yeah.
that's the perfect way to pivot into the Ayurvedic framework.
It really is.
Yeah.
Because that ancient system, as it's presented here, organizes causes based on certainty. And it puts a heavy, heavy emphasis on behavior and lifestyle, the controllable stuff.
All right, so let's start with what the traditional texts call the definite causes of disease. This is the red category. And the first big one is Viruddha. That translates to incompatible food.
And this is where the alignment with the modern science is just, it's striking. We were just talking about how modern science, with all its tools, isolated specific microbial contaminants like staphylococcal and toxins,
There's the SEs.
the SCs, and showed how they impact the gut's immunity.
And so thousands of years earlier, Ayurveda just observed that some food combinations or qualities were simply incompatible with the body's internal balance and led to chronic disease.
Exactly. The modern explanation is molecular. A specific toxin triggers an immune pathway, but the observation is identical. The food you eat can be toxic to your system long term. One gives you a broad rule, Viruddha, the other gives you the molecular mechanism, the SCs, but both point a finger directly at what you consume.
And the second definite cause is just as insightful, adhiranya, which means
What?
suppressing natural urges.
That's it. Things like forcing yourself not to sneeze, or delaying urination, or even suppressing tears. It's based on this fundamental idea that if you block the body's natural processes of elimination or emotional release, you get a buildup of toxic states that drive disease.
That really resonates with the modern stress data we were just talking about.
It does. I mean, when you force your body to suppress a natural biological process, you're creating a kind of internal physiological stress. It impacts your nervous system, your endocrine system, and those, in turn, have a huge impact on your immune system. It's a macro-level observation that modern science is now validating at the micro level.
Okay, so moving from the definite causes, the texts also have a category for ambiguous or connecting causes, the blue category. These are things that might or might not be a cause. And this includes things like exercise after intake of meals, and another one related to urges, Dharanya. But it also has this fascinating one that reminds you you're dealing with a very different worldview, Purvijanmakruta karma, past life actions or destiny.
And including that is so interesting because it puts the whole system in context, right? It's an acknowledgement that for them, not all causes of disease are controllable or even observable in this lifetime.
Right.
For an ancient observer, if you did everything right, you avoided the wrong foods, you didn't suppress your urges, and you still got sick, well, there had to be another explanation, a metaphysical one.
Okay, and this brings us to what might be the most critical point of comparison, because now we have to look at the brown-orange category. Things listed as definitely not a cause. And this is where we see a direct conflict with the modern data.
A huge conflict. The first one is Beeja Dosha, which means a seed or genetic defect. The traditional chart in this analysis lists genetic defects as definitely not a cause.
That's a head-on collision. I mean, modern research confirms that genetics are a foundational, undeniable risk factor for autoimmune diseases. So why would an ancient system just dismiss it?
It speaks to the system's focus, its philosophy. Ayurveda is all about health and longevity, so it emphasizes the areas where you can actually intervene. By classifying genetics as definitely not a cause, it basically redirects everyone's attention, the patient, the practitioner, onto the things you can control.
Your diet, your behavior, your mental state.
Exactly. It's like it's saying, let's minimize the focus on this unchangeable vulnerability to maximize our focus on lifestyle interventions.
The message is almost, don't worry about the genes you can't change, worry about the food you can.
Precisely. And the second item in that definitely not a cause list is just as confusing based on what we said earlier. Desha and Kala, place and time, seasonality and geography.
But we just established that modern science says Dosha and Kala seasonality, month of birth. They do seem to influence AD risk. Things like early UV exposure can program the immune system.
The contradiction is it's right there, it's palpable. It's like the ancient system is saying, no matter when or where you were born, your diet and your behavior are the primary drivers. And the modern system is saying, yes, diet and microbes matter, but the moment and environment of your birth also set the stage. And that contrast, it really shows how difficult it is to truly synthesize these two worldviews. It's not about which one is right. It's a window into their different starting points for defining what a cause even is, and ultimately where medical responsibility should lie.
So after all that, what does this mean for you listening to this and trying to make your own health decisions? I think the core message is that our strategies today really need to be informed by both the ancient wisdom of behavioral correction and the modern molecular research into specific toxins and stressors.
Absolutely. This deep dive shows that the causes of ADs demand a truly comprehensive, holistic approach. You have to look beyond just the genes. You have to look at the whole landscape, the microbial world in your gut, the environmental chemicals like aluminum, the psychological stress. The hypothesis for what's going wrong has to include all of that interplay. There's just no single silver bullet.
And as we close out, let's circle back to that foundational conflict we found. We saw that Beeja dosha, the genetic defect, was listed as definitely not a cause in the Ayurvedic view, even though modern science says genetics are key. So if real prevention and treatment rely on understanding that combine genetic and environmental risk, how does trying to reconcile these two viewpoints, one that minimizes your innate vulnerability to emphasize your behavior and one that confirms it, how does that change the way you think about disease responsibility in your own life? Is it more empowering to focus only on what you can control, even when you know part of the risk is coded right into your DNA? Something to think about until our next deep dive.